Welcome, Buckeye fans, to another episode of Buckeye Rising. I'm your host, Ace, and I'm here to take you beyond the box score to break down the whys and the hows of the game. Well, tonight, the perfect season is gone. The number one Ohio State Buckeyes suffered a brutal 13-10 loss to the number 2 Indiana Hoosiers in the Big Ten championship game at Lucas Oil Stadium. The Hoosiers win their first Big Ten title since 1967. As for the Buckeyes, it was a night defined by missed opportunities, offensive struggles, and a defense that just eventually bent under all of that Heisman caliber weight. Now we must examine the mistakes and find out where it went wrong. Get ready for kickoff. This is Buckeye Rising. All right, we're going to look at the offensive side of the ball. The signs of struggle were apparent right from the start. Julian Sayin had a Jekyll and Hyde performance tonight. While his final stat line looks pretty respectable at 21 of 29 passing for 258 yards and 1 touchdown, the key failures were just his errors and his inability to escape the pressure and just not find the open person. He threw a crucial interception on the opening drive, and from there, Indiana got the ball deep in Buckeye territory, and it led to the first field goal of the game. But worse, the Hoosiers' defensive front consistently breached the line. Sayin got sacked 5 times for a loss of over 29 yards. This completely disrupted the rhythm of the offense. Sayin simply didn't have time to unleash a good pass. The receivers were asked to win out, and Jeremiah Smith went out there and did everything he could to haul in 8 catches for 144 yards. That included a huge 51-yard reception, but the run game got stifled over and over. The Buckeyes were held to a paltry 58 net yards thanks to all of the sack losses. And on the night, Bo Jackson did manage to grind out 83 yards on 17 carries. It's not terrible, 4.9 yards per carry. But there was just too many long drives that stalled out due to the lack of consistent third down conversions. When Indiana's defense dominated the trenches, the offense just had no fallback plan, scoring only 1 touchdown all night. Now we're going to shine a light on special teams. This one really hurt. We had a most critical failure at the biggest moment, and it was that final missed field goal. There were 2 field goals in tonight's game, 2 kicks that mattered the most. Jaden Fielding was good on 1 attempt, hitting a 30-yard field goal early in the second quarter to help give the Buckeyes a 10-3 lead. However, the game-tying kick was the difference. With just over 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, after we had a 15-play, 81-yard drive, Fielding missed a 27-yard chip shot field goal wide to the left. In a game that was decided by just 3 points, that short miss is devastating. The fact that it's cost the Buckeyes a chance to even force overtime. It just was brutal to watch. It made me think of Georgia all over again. But this was an easier field goal. All right, let's look at something good. Let's talk about the defense. I think this unit played its heart out for this game. They put everything on the line. They held Indiana to just 13 points, and that really should have been good enough to win the game. The fact that it wasn't just tips my hat to Indiana. But what can you do? They couldn't prevent the 1 score that ultimately won the game. But I have to give it to some of the defensive players. My MVP for the defense this week is defensive end Caden Curry. Curry was relentless. He flew all over that field and really set the tone for the defense. He was instrumental in holding the Hoosiers to only 3 points in the first quarter and was constantly in the backfield. Curry finished the day with at least 1 sack and was just a massive factor in keeping Fernando Mendoza off balance for most of the game. We have to give credit to Indiana's offense for the game-winning drive in the third quarter. The Hoosiers just executed time and again on a perfect 88-yard touchdown drive, and that allowed them to take the lead. Their quarterback, Fernando Mendoza, was clutch, delivering a 51-yard bomb of his own to Charlie Becker and it flipped the field, finally capping it off with a 17-yard touchdown pass to Elijah Sarrett. Indiana's offensive coordinator really called a brilliant, balanced game. The fact that they rushed for 116 yards and passed for 222 just seemed to push the Buckeyes defense all the way to the edge. And the Buckeyes, I thought, played well enough to win. But the fact that they scored more points than us just shows that we weren't good enough in the moment. We're going to break down the most critical decisions of the game, and that's the ones by Coach Ryan Day and his staff. You know, the most critical sequence of the game really came early in the third quarter. The Buckeyes drove 70 yards on 12 plays and reached the Indiana 5-yard line. And on 3rd and 1, we had Sayin roll out and try to throw to Jeremiah, who's double covered, and that didn't work. So then on 4th and 1, Coach Day elected to go. I thought that was a bold move. If I had to do it over, I feel like he should have gone for the field goal then, because then if you don't do well later, you still have time to make up for it with a touchdown. But instead, they went for the 4th and 1 with a Julian Sayin quarterback sneak. But ultimately, Julian just didn't do well enough to get the first down. Julian looked like he slipped and hit his knee before he got the push, and there was nobody around him. It was reviewed and ruled short. This was a devastating turnover on downs. While the intent was good, I just would have saved it for the end of the game and taken the points early. If you take the points there, even if he misses that field goal, at least it informs you for later what you need to do. And if he misses the early one, then he thinks about it and maybe doesn't miss the second one. But either way, he was ruled short, and that's ultimately what did end that drive. In a low-scoring game against a great defense, getting those 3 points to maintain the lead might have been the more prudent call, but that failure to convert and the resulting missed opportunities in the red zone just proved fatal for the Buckeyes. The game-ending call was the failure to adjust to Indiana's defensive pressure. It resulted in stalling too many drives. The Buckeyes just failed to score a single point after halftime. Late in the fourth quarter, they really needed to tie the game, and I thought they called a good 15-play drive that really milked the clock, but the failure to score, even the short field goal, let alone the touchdown, that really put all of that play calling to waste. That's kind of the game. But before we go, here's my extra point. I think the biggest takeaway is that this was a failure to execute on the Buckeyes side. The Buckeyes had the edge in talent. It was obvious everywhere on the field, but the offense just couldn't finish the drives. They would reach the red zone 4 times and only walk away with 1 touchdown. Indiana's defense does deserve immense credit for forcing so many mistakes on the Buckeyes' part. I think while the final verdict on the CFP is yet to come, this loss means the Buckeyes have failed to capture a Big Ten title since 2020. And I think that's going to sting a lot of these players. They came back, or they played their hearts out, and just came up short again tomorrow during the selection show at noon. But before we go, let's talk about the Rising Star of the Week. And I know it's not really a Rising Star because he's been a star all season, but it has to be linebacker Sonny Styles. I mean, Sonny put it all out on the field, left his heart out there. In a game where the Buckeyes really needed every stop, Sonny Styles was outstanding, leading the defense with 12 tackles, 7 of them solo. His versatility in playing near the line of scrimmage to stop the run, then drop into coverage to disrupt routes was on display all night. Styles was the consistent force on a defense that otherwise held one of the nation's most explosive offenses to just 13 points. He showed true heart and commitment in the face of the offense's struggles. Well, that's it for this week's episode of Buckeye Rising. I thank you for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow to react to the college football playoff selection. Until then, OHIO, go Bucks.